Hello everyone and welcome to TechZone, powered by Accedia, a professional IT services company providing technology consulting and software development for businesses around the world. TechZone aims to shed light on how technology products are developed through the experience of software engineers, product people, UI UX designers, and other experts. Each episode covers a specific software development topic ranging from engineering, product, process, quality assurance, or a management viewpoint. Welcome to the TechZone.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of TechZone. My name is Bozhidar. I'm an engineering manager at Accedia, and with me I have Yordan and Zlatko, who are two of our senior business analysts. And together we will be discussing recent significant shifts in technology outsourcing, where cost is no longer the sole driver, with companies increasingly looking to procure specific skill sets. What we mean in particular is the outsourcing of the product creation capability. In the industry, we see this happening under three primary configurations. On one side of the spectrum, we have outsourced developers, but a product owner or a product professional, who belongs to the client organization. Then we have dedicated teams, which we're seeing more and more in the industry, where as an outsourcing company, we can deploy a squad which is able to have both development and product expertise, so both developers and a product owner. And on the far side of the spectrum, we also see some examples where companies are looking to procure product expertise, skill sets specifically, and so therefore they have internal development capabilities, but they hire an external product manager or a product owner. With Zlatko and Yordan, we will be exploring all of these configurations, and they will be able to contribute to the topic via the very different prisms of their own individual expertise and experience. So Zlatko is a product owner in a dedicated team, whereas Yordan is part of a more traditional technical augmentation team. In turn, I also have some experience with the setting where the product professional is the only outsourced party. So between us, we will try to piece the puzzle together and explore the benefits and, of course, the potential pitfalls of each configuration. To start off, we'll be exploring the internal dynamics within the team under the different settings and thinking specifically of the relationship that a product owner has with the development team. What are the main benefits that you see in having a dedicated product owner? And I think, Zlatko, you're best placed to answer that given your experience.
Thank you, Bojo, for the neat introduction. My name is Zlatko. I will bring the product perspective and I will try to fight the stigma on why outsourcing the product role might work. If we have, as Bojo mentioned, outsourced development team, there are some benefits of outsourcing the product role as well, because this is the way a cohesive team is being built. And also this ensures faster information flow. We have enhanced communication because the team shares the same language, the same location, the same time zone. All of this leads to a better alignment on the user and the product needs. Hence, having a cohesive team also enables team empowerment. I would like just to further delve in that this is possible also from the product leadership. They can benefit from this empowered team. So as Marty Kagan recently shared in a podcast, it's not enough only to empower a team, but also the product leadership needs to give that team a hard problem to solve. So in this sense, this can be enabled by having all of the product pillars inside of the team. Also, having a cohesive team destroys the silo pattern, whereas in the past it was the product person would come up with, let's say, an idea, which he would send out to the product designer, who would later send it to the engineering team. All of this led to the broken phone effect and total misalignment on user needs. We covered some of this topic in the Product Trio podcast. You can listen to that. And going back to our topic, I would summarize that outsourcing the product role has the benefits of building a cohesive team, removing any barriers that the team can face, and most importantly, the team is aligned on the user needs. Hence, it can bring more value to the product and to the user.
Thank you, Zlatko. I think those are some excellent points. Especially, I picked up two, which one of them is, as you said, having all three pillars. And again, for those of you who haven't listened to it, you can listen to the Product Trio episode, which goes into much deeper detail on this. But having all of the necessary building blocks for product creation within a single unit is highly beneficial, as then this team can then be redeployed in different industries and be highly efficient, and that greatly reduces speed to deliver, speed to market, etc., and ultimately even cost by virtue of those. The second point that I was really intrigued about was the one you made about empowerment. I do find it very intriguing, and also I think it can be very different in the different configurations we're talking about. So in your case, obviously the dedicated team is empowered. But what about the scenario where the product owner is external and essentially you're part solely of a technical team? How does that work in that setting?
Thank you for the question. I've worked as a traditional business analyst in that certain setting for a while now, a couple of years. The main difference between what I do and what Zlatko does is that he steers the product direction, while I am responsible for receiving a direction from a product person and then making this a reality. However, with that being said, there are quite a lot of challenges in the process. And number one is throttling. Team throttling is something that occurs when a person is not empowered to make decisions, which essentially means chasing stakeholders, presenting them with information, which sometimes might take a lot of time because there are a certain amount of people that you need to reach out to. Then you need to wait for someone to make an actual decision so that you can transform it into a reality. Number two, as a challenge, would be we are essentially reacting to a predefined requirement. So someone tells us what has to happen, and although we can act as a counselor, the decision is not ours. We make that vision a reality. However, we're not responsible for defining the vision. And the last challenge that most of the business analysts that work in a traditional settings face is not being seen as a peer to their product owner. Although we make the product owner's vision a reality, we're not seen as their peer because ultimately people refer to the product owner as the visionary, as the captain of the ship, while we're just making that happen.
Thank you, Yordan. I think one of the points which I found really interesting was that you basically, in this scenario, the business analyst is essentially a counselor to the product owner, and that in so far we are you don't have ownership, but you can challenge, and oftentimes you're actually not only allowed but expected to challenge, expected to question, expected to bring a different perspective. If we start talking about external dynamics then, so dynamics not just within the team but with external stakeholders, as we kind of already started, how does this work then? So you're a counselor, you don't have ownership, but then obviously you're expected to still contribute. How does this work in terms of sharing responsibility with the product owner? How do you divide tasks? Are there specific areas which your contribution is more prominent than in others? Tell us more about that.
There is a very important point to make. I am indeed a counselor to the product owner because it's my job to challenge some of the decisions they make, because my point is to, of course, bring their vision to reality. However, I need to bring that vision in the best possible way. And if we don't see a way that's satisfactory enough to satisfy the needs of the end user, then of course I have to challenge, because if I don't feel something's right, I need to speak to the product owner and to see whether there is another way of doing things, if we're possibly solving for the wrong thing. And it's all in the name of the end users that are going to use the product or the service that we're offering. It's an interesting process because sometimes my views get challenged as well. So it's a constant communication between the two of us, and we are challenging each other. I'm challenging the vision, but the product owner might be challenging the way I am proposing things to be solved. When it comes down to eliciting requirements, I am the one to go to. I am given a specific requirement, a business requirement, which I must then decompose to different solution requirements, technical requirements, functional, non-functional, etc., to the point where the product owner and the product team essentially is satisfied. And I'm also responsible for doing the first line API testing, because I need to make sure that whatever I'm bringing to the developers is actually working the way it's intended to. For the existing services and for the services that do not currently exist, I'm responsible for describing very well what can they expect. It's an interesting share of responsibilities that I have. The communication with SMEs and different stakeholders, I'm heavily involved in that, because I need to understand the need of the business from each and every possible side. And then I consolidate all of that information and I go to the product owner and I'm like, Mr. Product Owner, here's everything that I could find with regards to the process, with regards to the possible improvements, with regards to the challenges, with regards to everything that we're currently facing. And then based on that, the product owner, maybe in the likes of Zlatko, would then make a decision which I can either accept or challenge, and then off we go.
So the way you guys have shared your responsibilities and tasks obviously works for you and it's efficient. In the case where you're not the middleman, though, and in the case where you're empowered as a product owner, what are the benefits in that scenario? And what are some of the drawbacks as well?
I wouldn't call myself a product owner. Recently, Marty Kagan demolished that role. I feel really bad about it, so I would refer to myself as a product person. So as an empowered product person, the biggest benefit of that is that from my point of view, I am involved in pure product development. So the Scrum Guide says that the product owner has a responsibility for stakeholder management, while I find myself a user pleaser, not so much as a stakeholder pleaser. So in this sense, I think that empowered teams should focus on bringing maximum value to the end users rather than pleasing their stakeholders. So in this sense, the biggest benefit is that I can focus, or our team can focus on bringing value to the users, while the biggest drawback, and it's a nuanced drawback, is that we have the responsibility for our decisions. So we own them. We own these decisions, meaning that if we do a great decision, the cheers are for us. But also if we do something bad, then we own the tears. The second drawback of this approach is that we have to find our own path. That is interesting, but also challenging. We have to find the correct users to talk to, and also find what their hidden needs are, which can be quite challenging. While if we would look at the old paradigm where we had a top-down management saying what needs to be built, I would say that it's more easier because you have a hard requirement for A, B, C, and D, and you don't own the responsibility of the outcomes of those features.
Zlatko, I think that's a really interesting point that you made about owning the decisions within your setup. And I would like to add to that I also share a sense of responsibility for the decisions that our team makes, because I have a huge part in that by finding the best way to deliver what we decided that we're going to deliver. However, I feel that the ownership is a bit different. I think the sense of ownership is in both of us. However, you are feeling responsible towards the direction, while I am responsible for the actual way of delivery. And so I think this is really common ground between us, that we have a shared sense of responsibility. And when something goes south, we feel responsible and we can take and we should take action to fix something. But when all goes well, I think people would also cheer for us. So I just wanted to express that.
And I think it all comes down then to the ability to actually influence processes. In your case, yes, technical processes. But I think as a empowered product owner, as part of the team, you can also influence business processes. And I think that's a point that I would like to add, because the delivery of specific functionality or a product is one thing, but actually embedding it within the organization, or actually changing the organization to work in a way which empowers the product. I think this is something that also has to come from the product team. And if we have a situation where as part of the development team, we have a product owner that is close to both construction of the product, but also the needs of the users and the actual mindset of the business, then they can use that to steer the ship in a direction synchronized between, yes, products, organization, users.
I agree 100% with you, because I wanted to add that being empowered doesn't mean that we do whatever we like to do. No, as I said earlier, we are empowered to solve a hard question or a hard problem. This is also aligned with the business goals and outcomes that we want to achieve. So I truly agree with what you mentioned. And for all of our listeners, I want to underline that we are trying to find out which is best for the business, the product, and the users. Yordan also mentioned that he's doing that, even though his role doesn't assume that. So, great note, Bojo.
And I think another great point by you, though, was that yes, we are indeed there to solve a problem, not just to build a solution, but we are solving a specific business or product issue. This kind of leads us to the reason why some organizations would specifically go out and hire a product owner specifically, even though they might have internal development capabilities. And if you think about it, it's a very interesting paradigm, because why would you? So usually you outsource to reduce risk, but if you bring in an external product person, then by definition you lose control, you increase risk. So why would some people do it? And maybe to slightly answer my own question, in terms of my previous experience in a past life, I used to work in consulting, and this was something that was very, very common. Some clients would specifically come to us as a business and ask for a product manager or a product owner. And what they were expecting there, obviously we wouldn't have domain knowledge specific to each and every industry. So you lose that. You lose the domain knowledge of a subject matter expert who is part of the organization itself. But what they were paying for essentially was experience. They were paying for a very specific set of skills, adaptability being one. So the ability to come in a new business, very quickly adapt to the environment, adapt to the use case, adapt to the technology, adapt to the industry, without necessarily becoming a subject matter expert, but being something very close to it. But then bringing both your product management experience and expertise, and also bringing a fresh perspective, which is something that it's very, very important, and that's something that an external product owner can do. They come in with a lack of bias. They come in with cross-industry experience as well, and they can then apply ideas that they've seen elsewhere. They can apply it to that specific context. They essentially come in with fresh eyes. And this is something that, yes, you increase risk by trusting that person. You lose control, but you gain innovation, essentially.
Bojo, I would just like to underline what you mentioned about innovation. I recently heard in my favorite book author, Marty Kagan, that he mentioned that in future teams, the equation looks like 100% predictability, which leads to 0% innovation. So I think that it's a good trade to reduce the predictability, but to increase the innovation, because users' needs are constantly changing and the product needs to adapt to those changing needs, hence serve the users, because that's the most important part of our roles.
If the trade-off is so good, then why is there almost a stigma around it? What are the challenges of bringing in someone external as a product professional to essentially take over control of your product?
I agree that there is a stigma, and in recent years, outsourcing meant only development, and people are accustomed to that. But as you mentioned in the beginning, times are changing. Essentially, it's a risk that can yield a return in innovation and cohesive teams. And these are not words without substance. Recently, I heard that if you're using your engineers only for them to code, then you're using only 50% of their capacity or even less. Because if you think of it, these are the people that spend the most of the time with your product. And if you add to them a person who can discover hidden and not so hidden user needs, and you have a product designer who can find a way to bring that value from a UX point of view, and you have a team which can develop that, and they are these three pillars, once again, they are aligned on this, then this is where the innovation happens. But it is enabled through cohesion and empowerment.
So, adding to your point, I think there's an important point to make that opinions are controversial. So, for some people, newcomers to the team, especially for product teams, might represent a fresh idea, a fresh start, someone to take a base and start building upon it. While for some and for others, this could mean someone being seen as an outsider, someone that doesn't belong there. So by being adaptable and by being professional and by being well aware of that fact, I think at some point everyone is received better in their teams.
And I've experienced this myself as a consultant. There is definitely that outsider bias. Like, who are you? Why do you think you have more experience necessarily in that specific industry, in that specific setting? And again, the answer is often you don't have that experience. But as you said, you have adaptability, you have drive, and you're able to very quickly gain the product vision. So as we're nearing the end of the episode, then I think it's been a very productive and useful discussion. So my question would be, what are your takeaways from it? What did you find interesting?
From my perspective, empowerment, team cohesiveness, and innovation does not come outside of the box. The product leadership needs to nurture the team empowerment by handing over the product role. And also, it needs to provide a complex problem which is aligned with the product strategy and product vision.
I think one of the key takeaways that I made during our conversation is that what brings the results that people and the business are actually expecting is the connection of the professional with the product or the service. So now by professional, it could be a product owner, it could be a business analyst, it could be an engineer or a tester. Some people are empowered to make decisions, but some people like me are not. However, if you want to contribute to the product success and to the product roadmap and to the product vision, you can always find a way, just like myself.
And I think my key takeaway has actually been how many great key takeaways have there been throughout the entire conversation. And I'm actually being serious. I think what we've shown here is that there are different approaches that work in very different settings. And that depends on the client, that depends on the product, that depends on the scenario, on the use case. So there's definitely no single silver bullet here, as with most product topics. But we've shown that with the right drive and the right expertise, you can make all three of the different configurations work. So you can have a dedicated team, which is what we're seeing be the most, I think, universally applicable and universally useful configuration. You can also have a development team with an external client product owner. You can have the scenario where you bring in someone external as a product professional, and with the right people and the right strategy, these can all work. If you need more information on your specific use case and what engagement model would work there, then feel free to browse through our website or get in touch. But with that, I would like to really thank our guests and everyone involved in making this episode. So we hope that we've given you some food for thought, and you can definitely expect more in the future. Thank you, and until next time.
And remember, if you're facing a problem and you know what you need, we can help you with that. And if you're facing a problem and you don't know what you need, we can also help you with that.
This is the end of the episode. If you enjoyed it, follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other audio platform. Subscribe to our YouTube channel via the link in the description of the episode so you can explore more, and stay tuned for all the video content we produce. Thanks again, and goodbye from us.